So in China in itself, and there's a thing in China which is called 779, I believe, top of mind. No, sorry, 997, which has been banned in China. And that comes down to working 7 days a week from 9 to 9. And that was a massive thing across all of China. And the government actually like refrained anyone from having those hours in the company because it's just simply inhumane. You can't keep up 7 days a week, 9 to 9. It's just impossible, you know? So with our kind of like local facilities and everything that we do, and even within our like communication channels, it's like simple things that make the difference, like an off-work channel, you know, where people send photos of their dog. Like we try and make it a nice environment to work and make sure that there's proper shifts. So what we do is we roulate our companies, our operators, our warehouse workers and everything according to shifts so that there's always a certain amount of days off, because China is known to work around the clock nonstop. So we make sure that we obviously create that room and create that little bit of freedom within our working environment that not only applies to like our China operations, but also within our own operations, just making sure that there's obviously the level of quality that we want to have. Like we on average have 3 to 5 minutes average response time to any message when working with us, any message. And that comes out of a place of understanding as well, which I've spoken to you about earlier. Everything we do comes out of a place that was once pain, and is understood pain, and now is turned into a solution because we really understand that pain. And when you deal with China, you're essentially managing your business from 9,000 kilometers away, speaking with people that can barely speak with you because there's such a big language barrier. And we just want to like have everyone who works with us and everyone who deals with China experience all the upside without the downside.
What are some of the things then that you've done within your business that allows you to deal with the Chinese on a level where they give you respect as well? Because I see a lot of brands going into that marketplace and I think they go in there with the wrong attitude. They're looking for the cheapest prices. They're looking to screw things down to the floor. They just want to get the biggest output out of China that they can for the lowest amount of cost, which I don't think is perhaps the proper way to do business in China. So give me a bit of an insight to that.
So to begin with, to earn respect, obviously speaking the language is a massive one for me. It directly shows the actual interest in the culture. And also, I mean, to this day, you know, people's jaw drop on the table when I do start speaking. And that's not only because I speak, you know, you can speak like a few phrases, like you don't even sound them, not from there, you know, and that ultimately already creates like a very serious level of respect because they know, man, this guy's really put in the work to even understand us. So that for me, from my personal perspective, is obviously a big way on how I get things done and get into rooms that no one gets in and deals that no one gets done. So that's my side of things. But when dealing with China, the thing is there's a massive left side and a massive right side of like what you just asked me, because there's certain people that deal with China that simply really get screwed over. You know, like I have saved brands tens of millions of dollars on a yearly basis with just a few simple tricks. And there's brands where I have, you know, put in a lot of work and we really couldn't get anything done just in terms of safety measures, of certificates and making sure that things were properly set up. Also making sure that they could actually exit their brand, but not necessarily anything in terms of pricing, but more like payment terms. Certain suppliers or certain agents just have disgusting margins. And that's also something that I try and, because a lot of people ask me, hey, do you source or whatever? Do you do this? Do you do that? No, I just help you get a better relationship with China. And that's also what we do with our business, is because no one is able, and I can confidently say that really understands both worlds better than I do. So forming that bridge to get the best out of that partnership is what we really do and what we really help with. Because sometimes, yeah, you're getting fucked over. And you're probably paying like a couple mil too much each and every single year, you know? And sometimes you have a really good supplier, you know, and it's not really fair to actually, you know, squeeze people to the bone and get the most out of it.
You need to understand what you have. So you need to be able to understand it from the level that you're saying.
Exactly.
Because if you can't understand that psychological piece of what you actually have before you go and start to negotiate, you don't know what position you're coming from. You mentioned there as well, there's a few little hacks, tricks that you've implemented in the brands that have saved like tens of millions of dollars. Yeah. What are those?
It sounds so simple and it's so straightforward, but it's understanding the price quality comparison of the things that you buy. You know how many people have just found like one really good manufacturer and just stuck to them for like the last couple of 5 years and they never even visited them, and they paid like tens of millions of dollars just through the factory? Understanding in general what the price quality comparison looks like for your type of products is something so good to start.
Brothers, isn't this much better than, I don't know, I think religion is very important, but you know, streaming, I think it's better just to have value, you know. Like for me, example, I do action choreography and also full stack development. That I'm going to add value for you guys, I think, and breakdancing, of course. I think that's better. Just truly want to help you guys from the bottom of my heart. Alhamdulillah.
Start with, and that doesn't even mean that you have to switch suppliers, but it just allows you to create an understanding of what's the market value and production rate of these products. It is so simple, but no one does it.
How do I do it though? How do I do it?
I mean, you can call me.
Yeah. No, but if I wanted to go there and I didn't know you,
you would basically just like start actually sourcing. So you go on websites like 168A, Alibaba, websites obviously take them off platform, Alibaba, you build and develop a relationship with these suppliers, and you send them your products even to get an understanding. Like another really fun thing that you know we always do when we speak to clients or whatever, it's like if you tell me where you're buying these microphones from, for example, like let's say this was your brand, and you tell me like, hey, this is coming from Shanghai, I could tell you, oh, you're dealing with a trading company. They'd be like, how do you know? It's like, because they don't produce electronics in Shanghai. They don't produce it in that region. That's all Shenzhen, Guangdong, Guangzhou, Dongguan, Foshan. It's like all those areas, like, you know.
So you can already tell instantly that there's another 33% margin on that product just from where they're telling you that they're getting it from in jurisdiction.
First question I ask, yeah.
Yeah, it's powerful. And it sounds, like you say, the tricks that you're telling people on this podcast, they do sound so simple, but simple things cost people a lot of money.
They do. And also because, again, like, as I was saying, the gap between even getting that done properly and not being fucked over again requires someone who really understands the market and really understands the culture and how to even do those things, or how to even like not upset your supplier by sending your products to another manufacturer just to create that perspective.
Well, let's go into that, because obviously you're saying source from 2 or 3 suppliers, send them to one another, see if they can make this and how much can they make it for. Obviously we're trying to cut our margins down, cut our costs down. I understand that. But at what point is that taking the piss? Like in terms of like in the Chinese culture?
Not really anytime soon. It's just business. It's just business, like creating an understanding of you know, because like it's not always, it's kind of like a triangle. You have one at the top, then you have your price, and then on the other side you have your quality. And the higher you go up in terms, the more likely you're going to tilt to like one side, which is either sacrificing a lot of quality or sacrificing to pay a higher price to get better terms and higher quality. Or the other way around, lower price, lower quality, but better terms, for example. So it's not necessarily always a moment of saying like, hey, we have to get better prices. Like there's been a lot of times where I actually advise brands to pay a little more in order to get better terms. To give you an example, there's brands that work with us that essentially can, as long as you know how to move your product, you can scale infinitely, because they have 30 days post-production agreements, as in like payments to their suppliers. But when fulfilling with our company, 1 day post-production, you can actually start selling your products instead of putting it on a boat for 60 days. So you get to unlock your cash while you haven't even hit this spot here in the time frame of 30 days.
How have you streamlined that?
By having really good local operators in place, where as soon as people are ready to inbound stock, we speak to them and their suppliers and make sure that that is all just like, you know, streamlined and put into our warehouse and updated once they're ready to sell.
So how did you first come across these pain points in your own business in order for you to be able to build out the facilities that can facilitate this?
So I take zero credit in the e-com knowledge, because I have been dealing with China and helping everyone in e-com, but I don't necessarily have the understanding of the actual pain points. I do now, but like it was more my business partner who really brings the e-com knowledge to what it is that we do to solve these problems. Because and I'm not, I know he's good with that of me mentioning these brands, but for example, one of his brands, Dawn Rose, the pain points that they face, from struggling with cash flow because of having to put so much money into stock, multiple warehouses, to also reaching new markets, was really stagnating their growth. As soon as they, again, solving that pain point, which came out of a place of understanding through our solution, fulfilling basically from a centralized supply chain in China, allowed them to like quadruple their brand in no time.
And how fast can you get the packets out of China into people's hands?
We've had successful deliveries door to door from China to the US in as quick as 3 days.
That's literally unheard of in this game. I've never heard that before.
I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. It's like, and that's something that, you know, for everyone watching as well, what is happening right now, and that's also why I'm going so hard on this, even after all of the content stuff, is to make people aware, because what I'm experiencing here and right now in this moment is right time, right market. It's all market timing. This is the right time for something like this to happen.
Yeah.
This is unheard of. Centralized supply chains around production hubs and fulfilling your orders to over 100 plus countries. And on top of that, one thing that we've also done is hide the actual China region. So we've integrated over 100 carriers. And that, again, is like my background, my software background, which I'd love to, you know, I think we should tap into that as well.
Yeah, we're going there. Don't worry. We're going there. We're going there. I'm not forgot.
We have integrated over 100 carriers to allow us to hide the China region. So you only use the local domestic shipping links and like the carrier details to provide your customers with information. So in the US, which again, like cross state, sometimes we're even faster, get a full local experience.
So they don't even tell when it gets to their door that it's been packed, picked in China, posted from China. Because normally, if you're taking out of China on a 7-day, 10-day packet, e-packet, I think they call it over there, if it would come through, it'll be Chinese branded. It looks like a dropshipping product. Yeah, it's like it's a real naff experience. How have you integrated the client?
That is a killing field. You have young soldiers being killed, thousands a week, and we got to get it over with. It's bad for Russia, and it's bad for Ukraine, and it's bad for us on a humanitarian basis. I've had very good talks with Putin, and I've had not
all that kind of stuff in terms of like the unboxing experience when it comes to these e-com stuff.
So that's more kind of like actually the client's decision to do that, but we do advise and we just obviously steer them in the right direction, because what we do and we look at it is what we do is really a given, like good quality fulfillment, and China fulfillment is.
Guys, but I know this is much better, right, than just watching a stream, playing video games. Of course, me playing video games is cool, but in general, I think this is much better.
Not something that's necessarily new, but we do optimize for obviously the best speed, the best quality, the best support around it, and also the actual advisory and software that we built all around it. So to get back to your question, we ended up closing a deal with one of my other business partners, Jason, where we actually start buying like factories, packaging factories mainly, to also facilitate that process and cut out the middleman there as well. So back to Vince's brands, we've saved them on a yearly basis $500,000 on the packaging alone, in combination with reducing the weight of the packaging, because fulfilling from China is based on weight. So those are all things that we just like help our clients with and really become the one-stop shop for anything that you need to get done in China.
So you really do, you take it to such a granular level, don't you? You're taking the weight out of the packaging so you can bring the cost of the shipping down. You ship it from China to speed it up. You packaged it so that when the US customer or the customer in wherever they are, UK, US, Greece, they feel like it's come directly from the brand. the brand gets to implement their packaging in the process to make sure that the unboxing experience for the person that receives the parcel is epic as well.
It's just like any other 3PL. It's just not locally.
Yeah.
Like the way the package is actually, the product is actually packaged is still like the normal process on how it would go.
So if you were to put it in a percentage term, Daniel, on how much brands on average could save by fulfilling from China in the way that you're saying right now compared to what they are currently doing, how much would that be roughly? If you're just going to give a ballpark.
It's not necessarily saving. It's more the efficiency, because in certain cases you can save a lot. Like there's been brands which we've saved a lot of money, but it's not always necessarily the saving. It's more the convenience of basically having our facility neighbor your manufacturer and get goods in as quick as 30 days max, you know, depending on obviously what products. And then one thing that is so big is that people do not understand that they're missing out on so much revenue because of continuously being out of stock. And that's when working with us, something that you can very quickly solve. You know, because, I mean, again, back to one of Vince's brands, I've helped them negotiate a deal with the suppliers where they would pre-produce all the material. So their lead time is actually like 2 weeks to just get new product in.
And
So
normally this would be 90 days, right?
Normally this would be 90 days, yeah, at least. You know, like it's really, really, really big. Yeah.
I love it. And I think that just cuts out so much noise for the brand owner as well, in terms of like there's not as many
Crazy.
moving parts as, because one of the key reasons I've not done a product yet on the back of the podcast, which I've wanted to do for the longest time, and I was telling you about it, is because I didn't want to have to ship a container full of stuff,
Yeah, it makes
sell
sense.
it, and then do it again and do it again. It's all that.
It's
and
so
that,
cumbersome.
And that becomes like the worst experience in the world for you trying to build something that's sustainable and can grow at a speed.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to be is out of stock, have to buy another lump, out of stock, have to buy another lump, you know? So
Yeah.
this kind of really does fix all the biggest pain points within the e-commerce space.
Yeah, it's really, again, like, it's, especially here, like, I mean, you know my brand, you know who I am, you know how I position myself. We've been talking about this in this podcast, and it's like, there's no need for me to sell what it is that we do. Brands should run the numbers, and they should see if it makes sense for them, because there's nothing to sell. It just makes complete sense.
I know a clothing brand, a very famous clothing brand in the UK that you know as well, that my friend's also insourcing. His name's Kian,
Yeah.
and he's also insourcing. He's massive in China as well.
A quick one for you guys. You may have seen I've started to mentor people because I was getting people in the DMs, reaching out, asking.
Yeah.
During the production, jumping in, checking the specific quality, making sure that you even take the lab test of the product itself to see if they're actually using the composition that you've agreed on in terms of material. Going to those extents is costing you very little money with so much impact.
I know, like when I did the podcast with him, and with the level that we go into in that podcast as well, it just he just basically shows you everything that brands overlook, the same way that you're showing what everything people overlook. It's just so many things that are super simple but overlooked,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to anything you're doing in China.
Yeah.
And what you're saying can literally save people millions and millions of pounds a year.
And also just like as you want to, obviously, I mean, like a lot of these guys that build the brands is an asset, right? And hopefully one day it could be sold. So even having like proper agreements in place and just knowing what the hell is going on that side of the world just helps with the actual brand valuation.
Well, Joe Foster told me, who's the founder of Reebok, he said to me the most important thing that he ever did was have like a sealed sample in both countries that was referred to before anything was sent as well, right? Which again sounds like a basic thing, but how many brands do we both know that are doing hundreds of millions that
Yeah.
don't have that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, even Gymshark in the early days when they were doing hundreds of millions, they didn't have that in place,
Yeah.
you know? So there's a lot to be said for people, like entrepreneurs like Joe Foster, that are way ahead of their time on all this stuff, you know, because he was doing these quote unquote tech packs and stuff like that
Yeah.
before it was even probably called a tech pack,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So you really have to study the depth of what you go to, Daniel,
Yeah.
to kind of really unlock these hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars extra that people are leaving on the table, Daniel.
Yeah.
Let's just go into the software background, because I know we touched on it, but I want to really go in depth on that, because you said you implemented the software and that's obviously saved you a ton of money, but I also understand from a higher level that it's building enterprise value within your brands that's a saleable asset. So how did you get into software, and how did you apply the knowledge of the software to structuring it right?
So especially when I grew up and when I started going through these different phases in my career where I started freelancing and I started doing everything I could basically to be in control of the process, which a famous quote of my mum, just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should do everything. And I started to very naturally take on all these responsibilities and being in control of like design and also production. And then I was like, oh, this needs to be on a website. So I started coding websites. So I slowly started to get into development and coding and putting systems and automations in place by really just systematic thinking. And I've spoken about this with one of my team members before, funny enough, where I feel like there's some correlation between the actual structure that Chinese language has and the way I like just look at structuring things when it comes to like coding and building stuff, because it's very systemized. And I'll give you an example in Chinese and then I'll try and connect it to how I build software. But if, for example, I would say, I'm currently in Dubai and I'm recording a video, I would say, 我现在在迪拜，在拍一个视频. The literal translation is me, currently, Dubai, action, shooting a video. And it's like really systematic. And like even when you start playing around that, if you want to say like I in the morning am shooting a video in Dubai, you would say 我这个早上在迪拜在拍一个视频, which again then says me in the morning in Dubai am shooting a video. So that's also why, for example, when you speak with the Chinese and they you know, they're like really local and they speak a little bit of English, it's always like you go there, or no, I know want, or whatever. You know, it's like, because it's like literally translated from such a systematic build up with very clear structure on how to communicate. And how does that correlate to software? The biggest mistake people make when building software is building shit that people don't need. What we always do is we let user feedback drive how we build products. And that is done in a very systematic way. I always use a beautiful analogy about a car. So let's say you and I, after this podcast, we go to the dealership and we walk into whatever. What's your favorite car?
Right now, I'd say just Lamborghini Huracan.
Lamborghini Huracan. We go to Lamborghini, we walk into the store, and we check out every single detail. The leather, the color of the car, the dashboard, the steering wheel, everything. And you get in the car, you try and start it, and the car doesn't even drive. People put all the bells and whistles on the thing that they build without really understanding the core value proposition of what it is that they're solving. Like, what problem are you solving? Getting from A to B is the core value proposition of a car. Doing it safe is the aftermath. Making it in style to destination B is the aftermath. But it comes down to the core value proposition of a car to begin with. It has to take you from A to B. And that's what we apply to everything that we build. And that's what I've applied to everything that I've always built. Just validate it and start with a bike before you turn it into a car. Walk even if you can, just to understand the experience of going from A to B. You know, so all of that knowledge is what we continuously apply, where I give continuous trainings within our company on how to reapply that way of thinking to how we build things. Now, the good thing is that I also actually have knowledge on how to build software, so I can actually also think with my team on how it makes sense to structure certain things so that we actually do build that core value proposition within the things that we build.
When it comes to building that software, though, what are some of the oversights that people make other than just understanding the A to B method? I understand that, but what other things? Like, are they not bringing in a CTO, someone who looks over the technology, looks over the coding at the right time? Because I know that when I've studied software as a service brands, that one of the key things that the successful ones did was they had someone who could interrogate the code from the early days, which I think a lot of these brands don't have.
The thing is that I'm not a non-technical founder. I'm a technical founder. And the people that we're addressing with this question is the non-technical founders, because I'm actually the one to a certain extent can actually validate that my people do. That's how they should do.
So you are the CTO of the brand.
I'm not necessarily the CTO. We have someone else, but I do work very closely with him, and I do understand what it is that he's managing and how he's managing it. So my advice to non-technical founders is to first of all validate and build, depending on how complex it is, to stick with something that's close to you. Nowadays with AI, with no code, you can really build simple tools, simple solutions that can very easily validate what it is that you do. Once you get to that point, you can actually bring someone on who you trust. And again, people watching should know my definition of trust by now, can actually help you to start building stuff and start solving that solution. Because ultimately, all you want to do is you want to feed feedback. You want to feed knowledge of, hey, as a founder, when you're running a software business, which again, I'm tapping a bit into both, all you want to do is speak to customers. All you want to do is figure out what problem am I solving and what do people want to solve? Like, what do people want? You know, and that by like asking really good questions, that's how you get better and better and better.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think they know what people want, but they forget to ask people what they want.
Assume.
Assumption, right? It's the mother of all evil in business, but everyone's assuming that they've got the best software idea. I like, when I think about software, I like to look at what's already working in the marketplace and kind of think, right, can it be done in a cleaner way? Can there be, like, a lot of softwares put too much functionality in the product and it sometimes overkills it. A lot of people are using like a Go High Level, for example. It does everything, but it does so much. Sometimes Pipedrive would serve you better as a CRM for a lot of companies because Go High Level does so much that you get too overwhelmed with it.
The thing is like with tools that allow you to do so much, it's kind of like the SOP death trap, where it's very easy for founders who do not have experience with applying proper systems and structure to over-engineer things and make them more complicated than they can be. So again, for like certain non-technical founders, you just don't want to like wish this up on yourself to work with something that has so much freedom.
Yeah. How are you designing your SOPs so that, you know, when you're structuring your content and when you're structuring your businesses or when you're structuring your software, how are you making it so that you do it, it's iterated once and then it can be worked on by a member of your team to iterate that SOP rather than you doing it all the time?
So currently what I'm really busy with is trying to teach the team how to do that a lot, but ultimately it just comes down to really good documentation and also explanation. So the way we do that is we were to document a process, we were to document a system, then what I would do, or whoever's in charge, would actually shoot some sort of a video to explain what it is that they do. And then the relevant team members, which often in the case is like one of the team members that kind of, you know, was either the first one of that department or whatever, has actually shot another video to explain it from their perspective so that we can see that it aligns with what we have put together. Right. And 9 out of 10 times, it's also really good to do that the other way around, because ultimately when running a business, there's two types of people. There's people that learn and there's people that implement. And if you have a company that is only filled with people that are learning, you're gonna have a very hard time. Right. I've been there.
So you need to make sure that you're employing action takers.
I mean, at some point when you get from 0 to 1, you can do that with a lot of learners because your knowledge can only get you so far. But once you get from 1 to 10, that's when you have to just deploy new knowledge. We have Kerry Logistics on board, which is the largest logistic company in all of Asia. We have one of our advisors on board who I'm not going to name drop, but he's sold to Uber for 1.2 billion, did majority of the warehouses for Apple. So there's no denying of the fact that I also, you know, I don't also know everything. Like there's also so many new learnings that I'm going through. Like I've spoken about during this session as well. It's my biggest thing right now is personal development. To like make sure that I can work on that and that I can even convince people that are here, that are willing to come down here and then take us here. Yeah. You know?
So how are you communicating that piece then? Because obviously you're talking about a guy that's done a 1.2 billion sale to Apple.
Yeah. To
Uber. How are you positioning this to him as an opportunity that he can't miss in taking your company? company forward.
You and I just had a chat before this podcast where we both said that we fundamentally believe that when you give without asking back, you're always going to receive more in return.
Yeah.
I've got the craziest email hitting my inbox. Hey, $1 billion founder here. I want to help. He reached out to me. He came to me. He was like, man.
Inbound.
He was like, man, the things you're doing, how you're doing it, the way you're positioning yourself.
That all comes back to the piece when you were on the whiteboard. You understood every area of your life, how you wanted to articulate yourself online, and then you started to do that. And then because you did that from an authentic space, someone like that saw that and could resonate. Whereas if you hadn't have done that first initial step, which is why I'm reminding everyone in this conversation about that first initial step, you wouldn't have been able to curate that conversation.
And I think to just double tap on that, on like why that happened, and that's also, I think, a really beautiful insight as a founder that I've been very fortunate to unlock, is that, you know, like all the things that we think are so important only get you so far. You know, you can only wear one watch. And like my business partner always says, and I know you can tell, he eats a lot of steak. He always says, I can only eat one steak at a time.
Yeah.
I can only drive one car at a time. When you get to certain cycles within your business, and things go well, and you start to make money, and you can start to take care of yourself, you can start to take care of your family, you can build your own family, you'll realize that the game we're all playing is not about money. Because the thing is, you can make as much money as you want, but money only solves money problems. Now, why am I saying this? Is that when you, as a founder, and I'm talking about our investor, and I've never even spoken about this with him, but I know that this is the place that he moved out of, is that he recognized himself in me. He sees the fire, he sees how he is as a person, and he sees that in me. And when you get to that level, when it really doesn't matter at all anyway, like you can do anything you want.
The greatest threat in Europe, and I'd say it was the greatest threat in the United States until about 30 days ago, is that you've had the leaders of the West decide that they should send millions and millions of unvetted foreign migrants into their countries. That is the biggest threat to Europe. And frankly, it remains, by the way, the biggest threat to the United States because, yes, we've got 4 years of President Trump's leadership, but I guarantee you, if the Democrats ever get power again, they're going to try to do it again. We cannot rebuild Western civilization. We cannot rebuild the United States of America or Europe by letting millions and millions of unvetted illegal migrants come into our country. It has to stop. Thank God it stopped here, but it's got to stop there.
Hi. Yeah, but they should come to a country legally. I think that's the best way, you know, to learn the proper language of the country, to learn the habits, the culture. They get everything for free, yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's the best way. Of course, there are a lot of variables, so yeah, it is difficult, politics, but it's not like when you're doing a fight competition. You know, there's always one winner, but yeah.
Like buying anything will not give you any feeling. And I have that right now. Like, it doesn't matter. You will only get joy from the things that you truly, truly enjoy and that you truly feel like is your purpose and that you truly are passionate about.
Yeah.
Because him doing that is probably the biggest amount of joy that guy has ever seen in the last couple of years by making me avoid icebergs that he has hit himself to do even better, to not be stabbed in the back once again.
Has he ever spoken to you about the day of the exit and how he felt the day afterwards?
He did, and that's a story that should be told by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hazard a guess it goes something along the lines of some of the similar stories I've heard from people that have sold for that much money. I'll tell you from my experience of those founders that I've spoken to, it's like, it's an anticlimax. It's something that you spend 10 years swinging the bat, trying to hit this ball, that, you know, 1% ball, and you hit the ball and you knock it out of the ballpark and you sell for $1 billion. Yeah. And then guess what happens? The next day you're like, well, okay, now what do I do? Because retirement is the biggest myth in the world. And some of these guys are doing it by 35, 40, you know. Yeah. They've got so much left to give because business is an infinite game. So I think what he's probably seen is he's like, right, who's my next, you know, protege? Who can I help overcome these things? And that's why he stepped in to help you, because he just wants to have some purpose back in his life, because he probably lost a lot of purpose when he sold that business.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, I mean, it's honestly, and it's so hard to like, that's why I love that I'm also documenting what it is that we do, right? Because we have so many points where we just sit down and we just look at what it is that we do, man, because it's really stressful, but it's so much fun. Yeah. Like this is the part that is probably going to be the most fun part ever.
Is it important that someone who goes in the pursuit of something great in life, is it important that they enjoy it?
Depends. The first phase, it doesn't. Like if I look at how much I've sacrificed in terms of my health, in terms of my happiness to get the ball rolling, It doesn't matter.
So is the ball rolling between 0 to 1? Is that what we're talking about?
0 to 1. Like start making like 10, 20,000 US a month to kind of just have your own freedom, location freedom, you know, and just have time freedom. That's the first part. Once you've got to that stage, there's no way you can do something to the extent of what it takes to like build something really big and not enjoy it.
Do you have a monetary goal that you're heading towards?
No. I mean, we know our numbers very well. I mean, taking a company unicorn status, that's definitely something that I would love to do. I have no interest in taking a company public. I would want to keep everything private. Just don't think that makes sense, especially considering we're bootstrapped and we've injected, you know, like multiple 7 figures ourselves just to keep it going, and we're just growing. So there's no way to like go to the stock market. But taking a company unicorn size, that's definitely something that I would say is a bit of a goal. Yeah.
Do you think though that when you get to that point where you have done that, do you think it will be as fulfilling as what you thought it would be, the end goal, or do you reckon you're just going to get most of the fulfillment from the journey of what it is that who you have to become together?
I would say that it would, you know, especially knowing who I am and what I find important, it would definitely be really rewarding. But I think I'm pretty aware that it's always the run up there that's gonna, you know, that's gonna be the best part.
I think the awareness piece to that though, that you've got so early on in your entrepreneurial journey, is the gift that you've been given. The awareness piece, just to be aware that the end goal isn't the goal. That's just, it's who you become on the way to go in there. Yeah. Just understanding that at a high level and fully embodying it in your actions and how you create and how you turn up into the world. That piece is super important. Yeah. Powerful. Cuts through a lot of noise, because I imagine what it allows you to do is it allows you to say, do you know what? That's not for me. That is for me. Yep. Is that what it allows? Yeah,
it does, because there's so many opportunities or things that I could do even with the brand that I'm sitting on right now. And I don't flinch about any opportunity other than doing things that are really close to me, talking about things that are really close to me, showing things that I know are going to help so many people in this unfortunately fucked up world where there's a lot of voices pointing people into wrong directions, in my opinion.
If I presented you with a brand right now and I put one on the table and said, look at this brand, and you looked at it, the numbers are good, the product's good, everything's good, or what's the difference between you doing that deal and working with that brand and not?
I mean, like us working with the brand, like on everything on China side?
Yeah, working with them or investing in it or building it yourself. What would stop you from, because there's a lot of opportunities that get presented when you start achieving stuff in life, as you've seen. There's probably your inbox, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be email, people are flowing ideas and things. We could work on this, we could work on this. How are you picking out the things that are right to work on right now and the things that aren't?
I mean, it's very simple. As I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that run businesses that are going to watch this. There's 1,000,001 things that you could do. There's always 5 things that you should do. Focus is everything. You cannot expect to compete with other people doing one thing extremely well. It's just unfair. Like statistically, just assuming that every single parameter that contribute to achieving that goal is equally as good, the only parameter that makes the difference is your time. So if you start saying yes to all of these different opportunities that don't necessarily contribute to the main one, the one that you've set for yourself, the one that you've committed to, it's unfair to think that you're going to beat someone who has that one main goal. Yeah. It's really simple.
Yeah, it's super. And that's one thing I've noticed in this podcast game is the ones that ultimately I think will be winning over the longest time horizon are the ones that can play the infinite game for the longest amount of time and not give up, just because they're not attached to the analytics, they're not attached to the other things, and they're in it for the right reasons. They're not clip farmers.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, they're doing it from a purpose. They want to actually, they want to take an interest in the person they're interviewing, and they want to connect, and they want to get the deep insights out of them and allow them to showcase their best self, which then allows them to be able to play that game for longer because it's taken from a genuine interest from a place.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think if you approach every brand and everything you do like that, I don't think you can go far wrong.
Yeah.
But we're getting too much now, even in the titles of like videos and stuff like that online and in your space as well, where everybody's now years ago it was the 10 million founder, now everyone's got to 100 million. Have you noticed? Yeah. Everyone's doing 100 million now. You know, and soon it'll be 200 million. It's like, when does it stop? It can't all be true, can it?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you rely on those things to differentiate yourself, it's not, you know, like there's so many brands doing 9 figures, you know, it's like, again, like it always comes down to the people. So a good friend of mine, Bruno, who runs Nude Project, I had a conversation with him, and I just thought that it was such a beautiful highlight on how powerful it is to document as a founder and create as a founder. And it kind of ties into the question you're asking. It's like 100 million this, 100 million that, 100 million this, 100 million that. It's a Spanish delivery company that is worth a couple $2 billion of euros. And they have been spending significant amounts of money on PR year on year on. They ended up hopping on the podcast with the boys from Nude Project. And throughout their entire lifetime of the company, they have never, ever received so much positive feedback from the company, from all the lower levels, because they saw what kind of a person the founder was. So 100 million or $1 million brand, ultimately, when you start to create or when you start to create videos, comes down to who you are as a person. You know, because the one thing that people get wrong, and that's like what I personally do not like about Dubai, people think they owe a seat at the table because they have money. Yeah. You owe jack shit when you just have money. Yeah. Because just because you have money doesn't mean that your voice should be heard. It's the person who you are, what you stand for, how you deal and how you treat people. That is your brand. And money is just the amplifier of all of the shit that you are as a person.
What is Dubai though for you in terms of what do you see it as a vehicle to allow a couple of months sprint of growth?
Yeah, I mean, I love Dubai because it's extremely efficient. I grew up in big cities like Hong Kong. I spent loads of time in Shanghai, Guangzhou, and this is all just extremely efficient. You know, you have a maid, you have a driver, you can get anything within probably 30 minutes. It's just really optimized to like really focus on doing what you need to do and have an optimized life. I love that about Dubai. I think it's really, really created and built to just be very, very optimal and very efficient, which I really love. But I personally do just miss nature. I just really miss nature. And I also think that, you know, because of a lot of it being very money centered, I feel like there's a lot of people that just wear a mask, and that a lot of it is very transactional, and a lot of people try and hide behind the money.
Yeah.
You know, but that's my personal opinion, you know, and
my personal opinion on this is like Dubai for me is very chapters orientated.
Mhm.
Like, this is why I spend a lot of time in Australia.
Yeah.
Why I go to I'll go to like places like Port Venus for a little bit of the year in Spain, and other places like sometimes I go to Istanbul, because I need culture. I need to see like families with each other on the beach, and then the rainforest in the background. I need to see all that kind of stuff as well. You need all parts. So I think Dubai is a great place for any entrepreneurs that aspire to have a certain place to come to for a couple of chapters of a sprint, but also not to let Dubai take your soul and drag you into a vortex where you're living here 12 months a year and you get pulled into like having the Louis Vuitton man bag and all this other stuff so you get pulled into the branding of Dubai.
Yeah, I know, and exactly, yeah.
It just that's what I see takes so many people's kind of souls.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's like, you know, just putting up that mask, hiding behind those things, you know, because that's what people think they should do versus, I mean, my other half gave me a book, and the title is The Courage to Be Disliked.
I've read it.
And I'm only getting started, so I can't give too much context, but just the title enough says a lot, in my opinion.
So it's a Japanese book originally.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know
Japanese
that.
book that was translated into English. You'll really enjoy it. I'll give you a couple more recommendations after the podcast.
Yeah, please.
By the same author. It's really, really powerful. I'm not going to say anything on the podcast about this book.
Yeah.
I'll just encourage all of you to read it, because it will transform the way that you think about life itself and how you view everything. That's all I'll say on it.
Yeah.
You know, but there's a thing for you. Your girlfriend has bought you that book, right?
Yeah.
She's bought you that book because she wants to make you better. How have you aligned yourself with the right woman in your life that you knew that you should go all in on when you've got so much opportunity and probably DMs flying in everywhere because of the brand that you've built on the internet? How did you know that she was the one specifically?
If you were to ask me what I am most proud of in life, it's the woman that I have by my side. I think in this day and age, tapping into everything that I said is important, from the trust to the values, and also someone that you can really rely on and that you choose to be with every day. That is something that, you know, I think choosing your other half as a man is the most important thing that you can do in your life, because I wouldn't be able to find the right words to tell you how much that girl means to me and how much she has done to me or for me and contributed to who I am becoming. And she would enter a room together with me, and if I would leave that room, my name would be not only upheld but also uplifted by the quality of woman she is. And everything that I do to this day has developed an entire new layer of purpose to understand what's on the other side of all the hard work. Because yes, I talk a lot about hustle culture, and yes, I work really hard, but I know what's on the other side. And that comes back to what we started this entire podcast with. Family is the thing that matters most to me. When I saw that girl for the first time, and I kid you not, I knew it from the second that this was the girl I was going to marry. Because I know she is someone that I would want a family with. And she understands me like no other, you know?
So there is really a thing like love at first sight. I've heard this from numerous people. I like to ask on these podcasts about relationships, because I think it's something that's not deeply touched on by a lot of other podcasts. It defines who you are as a man. It really, like, when I look at your achievements and what you're achieving out there, it all comes back down to, like, one, you observed your parents and how your dad moved with your mum and how he treated your mother, which then, okay, you thought, well, I want to mimic that in my life because of how much my dad's given to me. And then you've looked for that in your reality, and then you found this girl and you thought, right, now I can do what my dad did for my mum in my own reality and curate that life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you've observed.
I mean, that's very good. Wait. Not the game. Wait. Ah. hell's this? Me with my big head. Hey. Oh. No! What a ugly skeleton. So, for all your listeners out there, always raise your iman. That means always raise your faith into Allah. Very important. He gave us everything. Oh! Does a dog count like that? Dun, dun, dun. This game, man. No, not the knife. That's crazy. This game, man. Oh, this is cool. Tranquilo, tranquilo. Look at this bastard. Oh, it's a... What a bastard. Come on.
and embodied and then took action on it. And that is typical of your whole entrepreneurial journey. You spend a moment observing, you work out how your values are aligned with this thing, you work out what you want and what you don't want, you align it, and then you can look for it within that reality that you're seeking, and then align it with yourself because you know what you want.
Yeah.
So clear.
Yeah, I do. And I feel like when you do also know, as long as you just trust enough that things will come your way, they'll come your way. Yeah.
What whereabouts is she right now? Like,
That's
where are
it,
you traveling?
guys.
So she's in Indonesia right now. And I'm actually flying back to Indonesia tonight.
Wait.
So I'm just basing myself out of there right now. But she's all over the world as well. Like she's a killer.
Yeah. Is she in business herself as well?
Yeah.
How is it a guy in business dating another woman in business? How is that working out? Because a lot of this, a lot of the Red Pill community are now saying like some of them are saying you'll have 4 girlfriends, which I don't agree with. Some of them are saying you can't have a girlfriend that earns more than you. You can't have a girlfriend that's in business because that's masculine trait.
Yeah.
Like, what's your thesis on all of that? Because a lot, as a young man yourself, that's I feel is successful and embodying this. I want other men listening to this to really have a full framework that you've got and your perspective on this.
I think it's really relevant. I do agree to some extent that certain people just shouldn't be having a partner that's also in business, But I, in all honesty, think that it also, for especially a lot of guys, as a hard pill to swallow, having a successful woman, just to be honest with you, my girl doesn't need me in any form or shape, to be honest. She's got her thing down, man. She's killing it. She's got her own places. She's got a crazy real estate portfolio. She's got a thriving business. Like, she could raise a child by herself, like, honestly. To a lot of men, this is very intimidating. And I know a lot of guys that have seen a lot of success that would date someone that they know they're always going to be in control of. Because when shit hits the fan, or when they do something, which often comes out of a place of insecurity, like not allowing her to go out or whatever, it's your own fault. The fact that you're with someone who you do not trust to go out or have a night of fun with or dress appropriate or inappropriate, that it's relative to what you value. But often there's obviously a baseline of dressing in a certain way, having a certain amount of fun, being acceptable, being normal, being really normal things in life, So my perspective on that is that you have to do something that makes sense for you. I live a life that is so extraordinary, and I know that I'm here to leave an impact. I would need someone to understand that, because otherwise you're going to be consumed in my world. You're not going to understand it. You're not going to find balance. And most importantly, I'm not going to find balance. Because if there's one thing that keeps me going right now and that keeps me with both feet on my ground, it's her. Because she understands me. And that comes down to the whole freaking conversation that we've had. It comes down to being heard, to being understood. Because ultimately, all we do in this life is deal with people.
Yeah. And you were probably the first man that she ever felt could understand what she was going through as an entrepreneurial woman, because you were like, okay, I'm not going to try and fix your problems, but I'm going to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but like even on her side, and that's like something, again, it's not for me to speak about.
Till the other time. Papa.